Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right in because today we are going to completely dismantle one of your most deeply ingrained intuitions about existence. We're going to fundamentally change how you view the entire universe and your exact place within it. Think about the steady tick of a clock on your wall, or, that low-level anxiety you might feel about the future rushing toward you. We just take it for granted that time is passing. But get ready, because we need to leave absolutely everything we thought we knew about time at the door. So, does time actually flow? For centuries, our physics classes, our literature, or everyday conversations, they've all relied on this incredibly poetic imagery of time as a river, right? We imagine this relentless, powerful current sweeping us forward from a fixed, solid past right into this unknown, murky future. It feels so real. We truly feel like we're moving through something. But here's the massive cognitive dissonance we have to face today. From a rigorous scientific standpoint, that river of time moving us along, it's a complete myth. There is no river, there is no current. Consider this for a second. Time is just a mathematical artifact of the property of change in the fabric of space. This is a huge paradigm shift. Time is not a force pushing you. Time is not a container that events happen inside of. And it is certainly not a flowing river. It is simply a mathematical artifact, a variable, a coordinate, a parameter. When we talk about time, we aren't talking about a physical substance at all. We are literally just talking about the measurement of transformation. Think about how you use a map on your phone. Words like left and right or north and south, they aren't invisible forces pulling you around the globe, are they? No, they're just coordinates. They are structural parameters we use to navigate from point A to point B. Well, time works exactly the same way. It's a tool, a variable in human language that we use to map the internal changes occurring within what physicists call the 3+1 dimensional fabric of reality. We'll get into exactly what that 3+1 means in a minute, but for now, just realize that time is really nothing more than the ruler we use to measure how that physical fabric shifts and reshapes itself. Section 1. Deconstructing the now and why a single moment cannot support change. As humans, our biology makes us feel incredibly strongly that we exist right here, right now, in this razor-thin slice of reality. But strictly speaking, from the perspective of theoretical physics, this idea of a single, instantaneous present moment is mathematically impossible if you actually want anything to happen. A single point in time is a state of absolute stasis. Traditionally, we treat time kind of like a series of discrete frames or a frozen snapshot. But the problem there, a snapshot is totally static. It contains absolutely zero information about velocity or movement or evolution. The reality is, to have any kind of change whatsoever, you need a continuous piece of this 3+1 dimensional fabric. You just can't extract change from a single frozen instant. Because change is a property of a duration, not a property of an instant. To exhibit any shape, any transformation, or any configurational evolution in the universe, you minimally require 2 points in time, or more accurately, a continuous stretch of time. Think about raising your hand or watching a leaf change from green to red. For that evolution to happen, you need a duration. So that now you think you're sitting in, it's really just a psychological anchor. It has absolutely no physical utility for facilitating actual change. So if time isn't a flowing river, and the concept of now doesn't actually physically exist as a generative point, what is actually running the show? Section 2. The underlying fabric, the 3+1 dimensional engine of the universe. Let's lay out the actual mechanics of existence here, which comes down to 3 essential properties. First, this fabric consists of 3+1 dimensions. That's 3 elastic spatial dimensions and 1 static dimension of change. Second, it is structurally change-enabled, meaning the fabric is fundamentally designed to sustain the property of change and allow shapes to evolve. And third, and this is incredibly profound, this fabric is the generative source of physics itself. You always hear about the struggle to reconcile general relativity with quantum mechanics, right? Well, this framework suggests we look at this underlying parent fabric. Its geometry and elasticity actually generate both the macroscopic curves, like gravity bending around massive planets, and the microscopic behaviors, like the unpredictable interactions of subatomic particles. It's the master engine creating the rules of the game. So, why does time seem to have a direction? That's the obvious follow-up question. If time is just a neutral coordinate like left or right, why do things decay? Why does an egg shatter but literally never unshatter? Think about that very human experience of watching a loved one age or seeing a building crumple into dust over decades. Entropy seems to only move forward, relentlessly pushing order into chaos. Why does it feel so profoundly one-directional to us? The answer is fascinating, and it boils down entirely to what we can call the human lens. The arrow of time is not a physical push from the universe. First off, it's just a human definition. By mathematical convention, we simply assign the time variable to increase from past to future. It's just a naming choice we made to track the progression of change. Second is distinction making. Even concepts like decoherence entropy, which is really just a fancy way of describing how quantum states settle into observable reality based on how we measure them, only appear to have a specific direction because we, as humans, are actively making distinctions between those states. And finally, organizational discovery. We find patterns and we organize our observations. The arrow of time is an illusion born from our own observation. If you remove the human observer categorizing these configurations, the direction of time ceases to be a fundamental feature of the universe. It just becomes a neutral shift in coordinates. Section 3. Limits of the fabric, navigating travel and existence. Now, while this 3+1 dimensional space allows for immense flexibility in shapes, navigating travel and existence within it comes with some very strict, unbreakable physical limits. Traveling to the past? Physically impossible. Not just technologically difficult, impossible. Because time is a property of a changing fabric, once the fabric has shifted to a new configuration, that previous state simply no longer exists. Think of it like reshaping a lump of clay from a cube into a sphere. That old cube isn't hiding anywhere waiting for you to visit it. It's literally gone. There's no past destination left to travel to. Traveling to the future, however, is possible. But to describe it physically, you absolutely must include the starting conditions and the initial change of the system in your calculations to map out exactly how it's going to evolve. And here is a punchy little number for you to keep in mind: 1. As in, we can only travel into the future at a strictly constrained rate of exactly 1 second per second. That is the hard limit on how we experience movement through the change dimension. Because we are inextricably bound to the physical reshaping of the universal fabric itself, we cannot fast-forward the elasticity of space. We evolve exactly as the fabric evolves, no faster, no slower. And all of this leads us to a genuinely radical conclusion, something that fundamentally reframes everything we know about existence. Reality is not a collection of separate parts. It is one single object changing. And that means independent objects and isolated events do not fundamentally exist on their own. To really wrap our heads around this, let's contrast the whole with the local. At the macro level of the whole, the universe is just one singular changing object. Think of it as a single breath. But our everyday local experience, where we interact with a chair or walk on a planet or witness an explosion, these are not fundamental separate entities. Just like a wave isn't fundamentally separate from the ocean it ripples across, a chair is not separate from the universal fabric. They are simply temporary configurations. They're just local variations in the shape of that one unified reality. So if we shed our old way of thinking, what are we actually left with? Let's quickly systematically contrast these deeply held illusions with reality. First, the misconception that time is an external river. The reality is, time is simply a mathematical artifact representing the internal property of change. Second, the misconception that the now is the only moment that exists. The reality is that change requires a continuous piece of the fabric. A single point is entirely static. And finally, the misconception that the universe is a collection of separate objects. The reality is that existence is one single object, and everything we see, feel, and interact with is just a local, temporary variation in that fabric's vast shape. Which leaves us with this. If reality is just one single changing object, what does that make you? I really want you to reconsider your own existence here. You are not a passenger sitting in a container called time, just passively watching a river flow by. You are an integral, local phenomenon of a unified, constantly transforming cosmos. You are a localized variation of the fabric itself. Keep that in mind the next time you happen to look at a clock. Thanks for watching this explainer, and keep questioning the fabric of your reality.